first, it didn't seem like a big deal. Maggie Summers, 34, wasn't what you'd call unhealthy. She had a steady job as a real estate agent, ran around showing homes most of the day, and did her best to squeeze in a yoga class on weekends. Sure, her schedule was crazy, but whose wasn't? She figured she was doing fine, all things considered. When a new convenience store opened 2 blocks from her office, Maggie started popping in every morning. It began innocently enough, a bottle of soda here and there, cold, fizzy drink to kickstart the day. She told herself it was harmless. After all, it was just 1 bottle, maybe 2 on the really stressful days. Everyone has their little indulgences. She thought by the end of the first week, grabbing a soda became part of her morning ritual, as automatic as brushing her teeth. She barely noticed how often she was reaching for that bright, bubbly bottle. It was comforting, familiar, addictive, though she wouldn't realize that until much later. The first changes were subtle. Around day 7, Maggie noticed her jeans felt a little tighter. She blamed the dryer. Must have shrunk them. At lunch, she found herself hungrier than usual, craving salty, greasy foods she hadn't really thought about before. She shrugged it off, stress eating, she guessed. Inside her body, however, real changes were starting. The first sip of soda sent a shockwave of sugar into Maggie's bloodstream. Her pancreas had to scramble to produce a surge of insulin to manage it. Blood sugar spikes and crashes began to become part of her daily roller coaster, even if she didn't connect the dots yet. The high-fructose corn syrup in her sodas wasn't just sweetening her day. It was quietly beginning to tax her liver, forcing it to convert the excess sugar into fat. Tiny fat droplets were starting to build up inside her liver cells. The beginnings of fatty liver disease, invisible, silent, and deadly if left unchecked. Still, Maggie felt mostly fine. She noticed that she was thirstier than usual, but assumed it was just the weather heating up. She started carrying an extra soda in her bag, sipping between showings. It made her feel peppier, more awake, like liquid energy in a bottle. Friends joked about her soda addiction, laughing when she posted yet another picture of herself holding a bright blue or neon green bottle with hashtags like #SugarRush and #RealEstateFuel. Maggie laughed too. It was just a joke, wasn't it? By day 15, she had a small headache that never seemed to quite go away. She blamed screen time. She told herself she just needed to cut back on her phone use. Maybe take a weekend off Instagram. She didn't even think to blame the thing she was now consuming 2, sometimes 3 times a day. But her body knew, and it was starting to fight back in ways she couldn't see by day 30. Maggie's mornings felt different. Waking up was harder. She found herself dragging her feet, hitting snooze 2 or 3 times before crawling out of bed. Her energy was gone. That fizzy rush she used to feel from her first soda of the day, it barely made a dent now. She started drinking her first soda before she even left the house. The moment the cold liquid hit her tongue, it sparked a brief flicker of life, but it was fleeting. Within an hour, the crash would come. She needed another soda to feel normal. Then another. Dependency had set in one Friday afternoon. Maggie was walking up the stairs to a second-floor apartment she was showing to a young couple. Halfway up, she had to stop. Her heart was pounding. Her breathing was short and shallow. She smiled at the clients, pretending to check her phone while secretly trying to catch her breath. This is ridiculous, she thought. I'm just tired. But something deeper was happening. Her body, once efficient at processing sugars, was struggling. Insulin resistance was beginning to creep in. Her cells weren't responding to insulin like they used to. The sugar stayed in her bloodstream longer, damaging blood vessels little by little, feeding silent inflammation that spread through her arteries like an invisible fire. Maggie's blood pressure started climbing. She didn't know it yet, but every sip of soda was like throwing gasoline on that fire tonight. She began to notice another symptom: bloating. Her stomach felt heavy and uncomfortable after dinner. She brushed it off at first. Maybe she was eating too fast. Maybe she needed more fiber. In reality, the daily flood of sugar and acid was wrecking her gut microbiome, killing off the healthy bacteria that helped digest food, regulate mood, and even support her immune system. The imbalance was subtle but growing. Her gut was under siege. One evening, after a particularly stressful day of back-to-back showings, Maggie stopped at the store and bought a 6-pack of soda instead of just one bottle. It was cheaper that way, she reasoned. Just to have on hand. By the end of the night, 3 cans were gone. The headaches were back, more persistent now and accompanied by a strange fogginess, a mental haze that made it harder to focus, harder to remember small things. She missed a couple of client calls, misplaced her keys twice in one day, laughed it off to friends as mom brain, even though she wasn't a mom. Underneath her jokes, she felt a flicker of worry. Something was off. Still, Maggie didn't connect the dots. The idea that her beloved sodas, so bubbly, so harmless seeming, could be the cause of these changes didn't cross her mind. After all, nobody ever warned her what daily soda could really do to your body. No one ever told her how even one soda a day could increase the risk of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver disease, kidney strain, accelerated aging of skin and organs. It wasn't like she was drinking a 6-pack of beer every night. It was just soda, something she had seen in vending machines, at kids' parties, at every restaurant. If it were that bad, wouldn't someone have said so? She told herself she'd cut back soon, maybe next month, after the big housing fair, after her schedule calmed down. But her body wasn't waiting. Day by day, the damage was compounding. 100 days felt a lot farther away than she thought. By day 50, the signs were no longer subtle. Maggie stared at herself in the mirror one morning and barely recognized the tired face looking back. Her skin, once vibrant and clear, looked dull, almost sallow. There were new fine lines around her mouth and forehead, tiny cracks in what had always been a youthful appearance. Her stomach had changed too. It wasn't just bloating anymore. It was a stubborn roundness that refused to go away no matter how many salads she ate at lunch. Visceral fat was taking hold around her organs, hidden deeper than the pinch-and-inch kind. This type of fat wasn't just cosmetic, it was dangerous, pumping out hormones that fed chronic inflammation and raised the risk of diabetes and heart attacks. Still, Maggie convinced herself she was just getting older. 34 wasn't 24. After all, one Saturday night, she met her best friend, Hannah, for dinner at their favorite Italian spot. Over plates of pasta and garlic bread, Hannah leaned in, her brows furrowed with concern. "Mags, are you okay?" she asked. "You look tired." Maggie forced a laugh. "Yeah, just busy. Work's crazy." Hannah didn't look convinced. "Have you been to the doctor lately?" Maggie waved her hand. "Nah, it's just stress." But inside, her stomach twisted. She hadn't had a physical in over a year, and lately she'd been avoiding it. Something in her gut, no pun intended, told her the results wouldn't be pretty. And she was right. By day 60, new symptoms appeared. She started getting muscle cramps in her legs at night, sharp, painful spasms that jolted her awake. She thought it was dehydration at first. Started drinking more water during the day, but it didn't help much. What she didn't realize was that the phosphoric acid in the sodas was depleting her body's magnesium stores, an essential mineral for muscle function, nerve health, and sleep. Without enough magnesium, her muscles were rebelling, cramping and aching like warning alarms. Her sleep, which had never been great, turned into a disaster. She tossed and turned for hours, her mind racing, her heart pounding. When she did manage to fall asleep, it was shallow and restless. She woke up feeling just as exhausted as when she went to bed. Then came the worst symptom. Anxiety. It started small. A sense of dread before big client meetings, a fluttery heart when she got stuck in traffic. But soon it spread. Maggie found herself worrying over little things. Did she send that email? Did she say something wrong to that buyer? Was she forgetting something important? Her body was in a constant fight or flight state, fueled by sugar crashes, adrenal stress, and inflammation. Even her gut bacteria, now severely out of balance, were sending distress signals to her brain, feeding a cycle of anxiety and depression. Maggie tried to power through, chugging more soda to get through the day, telling herself she just needed a vacation. Maybe a spa weekend. Maybe more yoga. Anything but admitting that her beloved sodas could be the root of the chaos unraveling inside her. She wasn't addicted, she told herself. She could stop anytime. She just didn't want to. Not yet. The scary thing was, by now, even if she wanted to stop, it wouldn't have been easy. Her brain's dopamine pathways, the same ones hijacked by drugs like nicotine and cocaine, were now wired to crave that rush of sugar and caffeine. Every sip she took wasn't just about taste anymore. It was about survival. Her body had been tricked into thinking it needed the poison. And there were still 40 days to go. By day 75, Maggie couldn't deny it anymore. She was falling apart. The small things that once seemed manageable, a heavy workload, a messy apartment, the occasional skipped meal, now felt insurmountable. Tasks piled up. Calls went unanswered. Text messages sat unopened on her phone for days. One morning, she woke up and her hands were trembling. Not violently, but enough that she spilled half her coffee trying to lift it. She tried to steady herself with a soda, like always, but the fizz burned her throat, and the taste, once delicious, felt sickeningly sweet. Her body was rejecting it. Still, the cravings were overwhelming. Her brain screamed for another hit. She popped open another can. That same afternoon, she sat in her car outside a client's home, fighting back tears. There was no specific reason. Nothing had happened. She just felt hopeless. A sinking, heavy despair that clung to her like wet clothes. In a rare moment of clarity, she Googled her symptoms. Chronic fatigue, anxiety, weight gain, muscle cramps, brain fog, sugar cravings, mood swings. Every article led to the same culprits. High sugar intake, insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome. Maggie sat there, reading article after article, feeling a knot grow tighter in her stomach. Everything she was experiencing, everything, matched up with what happens when you flood your body with sugar and chemicals every day for months. Sodas weren't just empty calories. They were ticking time bombs. They were feeding hidden enemies. Diabetes creeping closer with every blood sugar spike. Heart disease fueled by inflamed, clogged arteries. Liver damage quietly progressing behind the scenes. Kidney strain from trying to filter chemical-laced liquids nonstop. And mental health decline, triggered by gut-brain disruption and constant blood sugar chaos. Maggie realized she was standing at the edge of a cliff. If she kept going, if she finished out these 100 days, she might cross a line she couldn't easily uncross. But quitting wasn't as simple as throwing away the remaining cans. Her brain was addicted. Her body was dependent. And withdrawal was real. The first attempt to quit lasted 6 hours. By mid-afternoon, she was sweating, shaking, and snapping at coworkers over tiny things. Her head pounded like a drum. She felt nauseous, dizzy, weak. Her body screamed for sugar like a drowning man gasps for AI or in days. She stumbled to the nearest vending machine and bought a soda. The first sip was like a fire hose on a wildfire. Instant, soothing relief. The world stopped spinning. Her headache dulled. She could breathe again. But so did the guilt. The shame of knowing she was trapped. That night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, Maggie promised herself she'd make it to day 100, just to finish what she started. Then she'd quit for good. Cold turkey. Detox. Reset her body. She didn't realize that every additional day made the climb steeper. Every soda wasn't just pushing her closer to diabetes, heart disease, and liver failure. It was rewiring her brain to need the very thing that was killing her. Day 76. Day 77. Day 78. She kept drinking. She kept falling. And deep down, she wondered, would her body survive long enough for her to quit? By day 90, Maggie was on autopilot. Wake up. Soda. Commute. Soda. Lunch. Soda. Each can blended into the next like a bad song on repeat. She could barely taste it anymore. The sharp, sugary tang she once craved had become flat and heavy in her mouth. But stopping felt impossible. Until the chest pains started. It happened one evening as she was leaving an open house. She was carrying a folding table back to her car when a crushing pressure gripped her chest. For a terrifying moment, she couldn't breathe. The world tilted. Her vision blurred. Maggie leaned against the car, gasping, waiting for the pain to pass. It did. Eventually. But something in her shifted. She couldn't lie to herself anymore. This wasn't stress. This was her body sounding the alarm, full volume. The next morning, Maggie did something she hadn't done in almost 2 years. She scheduled a doctor's appointment. The visit was a blur of white coats, cold stethoscopes, and blood pressure cuffs. When the results came back, Maggie's heart sank. Fasting blood sugar. Dangerously high blood pressure. Stage 2 hypertension, liver enzymes. Elevated cholesterol. Through the roof, inflammatory markers. High in 100 days. Maggie had pushed her body closer to a health crisis than she ever thought possible. Her doctor didn't sugarcoat it. If you keep living like this, he said gently, you're on track for type 2 diabetes within a year. Your heart's under strain. Your liver's already showing signs of fatty buildup. You're not just tired. You're sick. The words hit her like a punch. She nodded numbly, hearing phrases like dietary overhaul, exercise plan, and possible medication without really processing them. When she got back to her car, she broke down sobbing. Not just because she was scared, although she was. Not just because she was angry at herself, although she was, but because she finally realized. She had done this to herself one sip at a time, not with malice, not with reckless abandon, but with ignorance, with trust in a society that made soda seem harmless, with faith in marketing that sold sweetness as happiness. No one had warned her what daily soda could truly do. How it could rot you from the inside out, smiling all the while. Day 100 arrived. There was no celebration. No final soda can raised in victory. Instead, Maggie stood in front of her fridge, heart pounding, hands trembling, staring at the row of silver and red cans lined up like soldiers, and she said, out loud, to no one, I'm done. The next days were brutal. Headaches, cravings, mood swings, bone-deep exhaustion. It was worse than anything she imagined, like dragging herself through thick mud. But every day she survived without soda was a small act of rebellion against the damage she had done. Every water bottle was a bandage on her wounded organs. Every step she took outside in fresh air was a breath toward healing. It would be a long road back. There would be scars. But there would also be life, a real life, not one propped up by artificial sweetness and chemical lies. 6 months later, Maggie stood on the beach with Hannah, the waves lapping at her feet. She had lost 25 pounds. Her skin glowed again. Her smile, real wide, joyful, came easily. I can't believe I used to live on soda, Maggie said, laughing as she tossed a frisbee to Hannah's dog. I can, Hannah teased. But look at you now. Maggie looked out at the horizon. 100 days had nearly stolen her future. But they had also taught her a lesson she would never forget. Every sip matters. Every choice matters, and healing, though messy and hard, is always worth fighting for.